Hello, this is Tony Vance. You're riding with Tony. And today's topic is grace. And needless to say, I'm not going to nowhere near approach all there is that can be said about grace. When you think of all the books, sermons, songs that have been written about grace, we can't really even begin to touch the surface of what grace is all about. But what about grace to you? That's maybe a more important question as it relates to yourself. What does grace mean to you? I can tell you what grace means to me. Grace means that Jesus died for me. I didn't deserve his sacrifice. I didn't deserve his love. I didn't deserve his gifts, which are too numerous to number, to recount. Grace means that in my worst of times, he looks at me and says, I love you anyways. You're forgiven anyways. I'm going to think of the verse in Ephesians where it says, for by grace you are saved through faith, not of works. Romans 11:6. If it is any other way, then it's not grace. If it's by works, then grace is no more grace and works is no more works. That's a powerful verse when it comes to the idea of grace. Grace is to me, the most beautiful word in the human language, in whatever language that you speak, however it's pronounced in your language, but the concept and idea of grace, the idea of God stopping and asking for help and need and so forth and so on, and knowing that we need grace to be able to stand okay before God, because we can't stand okay in our own righteousness, in our own condition. I mean, who could stand before God and say, hey, I've done this or I've done that, when the numbers and the severity of our sin outweighs any good that we could do, even if there was a balancing act that was done. The severity of sin is proved by the act of Adam and Eve sinning in the garden, turning the world upside down. It completely changed everything. Death came by sin. But thanks be to God, grace came by Jesus Christ. John, in his gospel, in the first chapter, said that he was full of grace and truth. Someone asked me one time, why doesn't the Gospels and Jesus, why don't they speak of grace? Almost none. When you think about it, there's no mention of grace in the four Gospels except for in John chapter 1. And I think that's the answer right there, because Jesus didn't need to talk about grace because he is grace. He is the ultimate expression of grace. He is the ultimate picture of grace. And as John said, he was full of grace and truth. And so we can look to the grace of God in the face of Jesus. God bless you. Grace. What a great word.